And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KCMX News Media 880 and on YouTube at realestateshowOregon.com. I'm Pete Belcastro. This is Alice Lima here. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. We get together with you once a week here on the radio and on YouTube to talk about our favorite topic, which is Southern Oregon real estate. How are you doing?
Just doing great. The market is going through its usual winter withdrawal, but it's been recent.
Well, the weather doesn't help sometimes when it's cold and foggy out. You know, you don't really want to go anywhere, but I think the demand is still there. That's not going to go away.
Oh my gosh, we still have so many people out there that want to buy property in Southern Oregon.
The problem we have, inventory has dropped quite low. We'll have next week, we'll have the latest SOMLS stats out to talk about those and see exactly what took place in November. But definitely in our office as we go through here, really see
all
a
price
drop
points,
off.
all price points.
Yeah.
Please list your house now.
All price points. This exactly is very true. Well, today here on the show, joining us today is Mark Taylor. Mark's right over here, and he's the president and the owner of the Southern Oregon Hemp Cooperative, right? That is there? Correct?
That's correct, Pete.
And so we want to thank Mark for joining us because Alice and I, we've talked about hemp so much. And you grew up here in the Valley, first of all, right? You're a Butte Falls boy.
That's correct, since 1962.
Yeah, so in a farm or two, a little bit of everything.
Yep, farm and sheep ranch up on the Butte Falls Highway.
Yeah, that's right. So you got into hemp here. So were you like everybody else, like we've talked to, who got into hemp? Or tell me how you got, what surprises someone to get into growing hemp right now?
Yeah, Pete, it was really quite distant from me or my family. I knew very little about the plant as of a couple of years ago, and really was kind of antithetical to all things that were cannabis type of a plant. I never, being a farm boy, I just never partook in what I thought was related at all to marijuana hemp, say, for example. Yeah. But it was actually the marijuana industry that introduced me.
Started into that, okay.
Yeah, because I'm a general contractor builder, and I didn't make any judgment on the business and was approached by business people to build the greenhouses.
That's how you got it. Okay, that was the key. Okay.
Yeah, predominantly grew the marijuana for medical reasons.
Okay.
And I say I wasn't judgmental. I was a little bit standoffish until I met the people. And I have to say, these were just straight up good business people.
Absolutely.
I don't believe they were partakers necessarily in smoking it. They were going for business reasons and creating good commerce is what they were paying me good. And I had nothing negative all along that run of building greenhouses. And as we were kind of talking here pre-show, the cycles of everything goes up and down. And the marijuana business was hit by some oversupply and
nationally,
nationally, and then some disappointment on that end, and a few of those principles that I grew, that I constructed the greenhouses for, went into hemp. And
one of the things that we found out was that people, in terms of real estate, that the cannabis people initially were buying property. Correct?
Yeah, they were in ownership positions.
Cash. They were buying
from
property.
all over the world.
Everywhere.
Yes. This group was from San Francisco.
Okay, after that crash, then hemp comes along now, and what we're seeing is that people are not buying necessarily; they are leasing. Is that what you see generally in the world around us?
Yes, and I'd like to think that's kind of how I got introduced to Alice. We have a number. I would say that's the largest segment of my contacts right now. Is that people are asking? I have some land. I'd like to lease it on kind of what would you call the producer's side or the ownership side of it, and then as a result of making some successful deals and just introducing, the co-op considers itself a business-to-business platform that we get good people on both sides of the commerce aisle, and we like to share a little bit of screening. But we like to share who we believe are good players in this industry, and we can talk about that later. Okay. So, yes, there is a lot of interest, and rightfully so, because as much as folks talk about the cannabis plant as being a weed, it is not easy or inexpensive to grow.
To grow, harvest, and
to really take care of it.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, it's
Were there a lot of people? You're a part of a co-op, right? And so you have farmers or growers who are part of you. You have standards and
that's correct.
I guess things like that. How many acres, Alice? Hemp?
Is it 9,000 or more?
Yeah,
you can probably answer that more.
But what happens with this? I mean, we have all this we have all these thousands of acres out there. You got 50 growers are part of this thing. Was that everybody? Is that a tiny portion of it? Or who is still out there not being part of what you're doing?
Tiny portion, the ratio.
You are.
Oh, yeah. 3,000, I think, at the first sign-up group back in March. We had a spreadsheet to ask people what they wanted, what they were doing, and of those 100 and plus people that showed up at the meeting, around original 50 actually referenced that they had 3,000 plus acres that in one form or another they own, lease, mom, pa's property, or whatever.
Interesting, isn't that?
And they're all local?
If you look at some of them came from the coast, some of them came from Riddle. Some of them came from the coast, Riddle, and kind of a wide and varied area. It's a big valley, so all ends of the valley, I would say.
So those are different
Klamath.
growing conditions.
Yeah, we have really microclimates, and I don't believe that anything edified that clearer than this year.
Oh, sure, because of all the things. Well, we saw people would see, and we talked about them on our show. Hundreds and hundreds of acres just being grown up overnight with hemp growing. Right? I mean, we saw that everywhere.
Yeah, it was just everywhere.
And you wonder who's doing it, how they're doing it, how it's going. We heard that is there different types of grades of plants? Is there different? I mean, what was planted here around us? I guess first of all, what's here?
Boy, you're going to bring up a large and varied topic.
Okay, well, I don't want you to get into that,
yeah,
but just kind of briefly, what is that?
Yeah, briefly, the seed genetics play a large part, I believe, in the successful grow operation, and we have one prominent player up north that supplies a good portion of the seeds. So
all these thousands and thousands of plants that we around here came from one basic supplier?
Wow. I'm going to say this, Pete, without having the exact.
Sure.
I'm going to say that 75%.
Wow.
Prominent, okay. And quite a story in himself.
And what does it cost for a plant?
Well, I not to infer what you said, but like a seed's around 90 cents to $1 per seed for feminized seed.
See, this is what we heard. I mean, you're not telling us something that sometimes we don't. We've heard these things. Okay, what you're doing is backing us up and saying, "Hey, that was true."
yeah, I planted last year, as I said. So I learned a little bit about the cost.
We heard it takes, and I think last time again, we've heard it takes $20,000 roughly to plant an acre. Is that accurate?
I think that's on the high side.
Okay.
You can spend that much, and of course, economies of scale. The lower you go in acreage, the more it's going to cost you, because labor and things can be more efficient the more you have of it. But I found that mine was around, it's a small acreage, was around 15 to 17 is what I spent, and I made a lot of mistakes. I could have trimmed that. We have a couple of board members that are very efficient farmers, and boy, it's like India. You see a craftsman do construction, you see a farmer farm. There is a big difference between the entry-level farmer, especially in hemp, and those that are at their fourth or fifth year. One of our members had the first license, I believe, at least the second license in hemp in the valley.
Oh, wow!
Okay.
And he's young. And very knowledgeable. He would have done well no matter what he did, but it's really amazing to see what a calmer, because we had some real challenges with weather. And I'm going to disclose that this year I paid him to grow a little bit for me, because it's like anything, he's a better contractor than I am.
He's a better grower than you.
He's a better grower. He has a green thumb, and he really takes passion in what he does, but he's also knowledgeable. So he produced good results even in a tough environment. To me, that's
awesome.
Yeah, and a good kid, good person too. Call him kid because he's quite a bit younger. And so I hope that answers your question. I think that 15, he grew it clear down around 10 to 11,000.
Oh, that's a big difference.
An acre. And but he grew on larger. He got into that 26 to 35 acre.
And were all the plants that were generally the plants that grown here the same type of plant then, the same whatever you call that? I mean, the reason I asked that, we heard that in Klamath County, it's different. They grow a different type of hemp plant in the coast or wherever you can grow different types. So did most people grow the same plant here this year, I guess?
I wouldn't say the same. I would say that there's about, this is my not being the most experienced in what the planters planted, but only having my ear to ground and listening, about 5 to 7 different varietals, varieties, strains, I guess they would be called. And for example, the one farmer that I referenced there on the board there, he grew one that he specifically mentioned to me was touted as being mold resistant.
mold resistant.
Yeah, it had a good. It had a good. I don't know if it was resistant, but it had a good barrier to the mold.
I think we should invest in that one because that would be a big thing here, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about what happened with the weather and how some of the crop was lost because of that?
Yeah, I would, and that goes back to me saying that as a co-op operator, I'm not here just to tell people all the good in regards to the industry.
No.
I have
It's
to
educational.
it has to be a clearing board on what to look for and what to not do. I don't know if this would be a good segue.
Well, it's an educational thing for us because we want to know what's going on with the hemp industry. It's it's going to play such a huge part in the economy of the valley for the future, and so people like us are curious as to
And the listeners are too.
And listeners are too about what happened here.
Well, firstly, I think there's a very relative point to what you're asking, and that is the business plan.
Okay.
Farmers have known about weather since they first planted, and I believe that's something that you have to deal with. There is a process that I'll talk about that maybe helps protect you a little bit more. But if it rains really hard and the climate turns against you, I don't care if it's hay, corn, or whatever.
Right.
It's a real difficult scenario. We had a bad, speaking of mold, we had a bad weather process around the end of September.
In September, when all that rain came.
All the rain came. And what I noticed, once again, comparing to the strong farmers and the weak farmers, is on the small farmers, there were new panic hit. What's going to happen? And boy, I got more members signing up during the rains.
Of what to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, what's to do. And what I found intriguing was I immediately reached out to the 2 or 3 more knowledgeable farmers that I know, and they weren't panicked at all.
They weren't panicked about it.
They were not panicked at all. Now,
because
the one reference that I speak of said, I had hemp on the ground. Now, this is last year, and I thought he was being a little bit too. I'm an older person, and I had a little bit of money vested in this industry, so I was worried. And he said, I had hemp growing and on the ground in November last year.
Really?
Okay.
Really, and calm. And he said, besides that, and I don't get into this person's mind too much, but he said, I have alternate plans. I have 2 or 3.
So when we see the rain coming, we're going to get it out of there quickly. Something like that. Is that what it does? Okay.
And think about how that can hurt the farmer if it's too wet or saturated, and they don't have the infrastructure at that point to take care of it and dry it properly and really tender it. And we had a lot of things that we could talk about with the drying industry.
When my father used to see the rain coming and the hay was down, we went out and got it up quickly. Same thing you did too.
Yeah.
So that's what happened was the rains, and how are you prepared? How are you prepared to deal with that?
But it's such a new industry, and industries and new businesses go through a growing process just like humans. There's an infancy, an adolescence, and a maturity, and it's okay to make mistakes. And it's great that the co-op is here because that will help as time goes on, help everybody.
Well, that's so true, Alice. She said a lot right there.
Well, I'm a believer. It's going to be great for our valley.
I'm a believer too, and I'm not anti-hemp or anything. I think we got a lot of issues out there though that we're going to talk about because we got a break coming up. What are we going to do with all the stems and the things that are out in the fields, the plastic stuff like that?
Yeah.
What are we going to do next year? People lost a lot of money. Are they going to be back? All that kind of stuff. Mark Taylor here from the Southern Oregon Hemp Co-op is here. We're going to take a break, and we're coming right back to the Real Estate Show after this. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show on KCMX News Media 880 and on YouTube at realestateshoworegon.com. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima here in the house with you this weekend. Thanks for joining us on December the 7th is our radio date here as we move toward Christmas and what lies ahead for us. Our guest today is Mark Taylor, who's the head of the Southern Oregon Hemp Co-op. I guess that's the right. I love that word. I love co-ops. Co-ops are on a big trend back, food co-ops, all sorts of things, farmers co-ops, things like that. So
correct.
What you've done is the hemp farmers here have joined into a cooperative, right?
That's correct.
To probably maybe get through the first year. But anyway, what did you think of that?
Well, and you started this, so this was your baby going in to organize people. Is that correct?
That's correct. Remember, the reason is I kind of failed. When I planted the first year, which was last year. So it was I didn't want anybody. And it was an odd failure because I had a business that funded me and paid for my livelihood. And when I finally seen the numbers, though, of all the money I put out by not paying attention to my crop, to my babies.
It changes you, doesn't it?
It changes you. Then I go, wow, that would have been some real money. And now I did all right because I made a little bit more, but every good farmers, I started meeting with them, and I said, if I'm meeting with good farmers, the knowledgeable people, I wonder if other people have the access that I do as a result of the previous being in the industry. So I had these connections, and I said, and it was painful for me. And once again, as I said, my family failed in the farm. And it doesn't matter if you grow corn, you're raising cattle or whatever. If you fail, it's a painful thing.
It's an expensive thing.
It's an expensive thing.
And it hurts your family, yeah.
And I once again, to transition a little bit, I don't know if you've heard, I've joined with Hemp University and Southern Oregon Co-op.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we have a concerted effort, and it's a January 26th kickoff as a fundraiser for some of the farmers that experienced such devastating effects that some of them actually, we've heard and pretty much documented, took their lives.
Oh, no.
Is that right?
That's right.
Well, I mean, there were fields that were totally lost, weren't there? I mean, and if you put... Okay, you just said you put 15 to 17,000 kind of into an acre, and you lose it all, Alice. And there are hundreds and hundreds of acres.
Yeah,
and that's a shame.
Well, we'll have to help. We'll help promote that fundraiser. Yeah, because things can go wrong. Do you want to address some of the not so sunny side of growing hemp?
Yeah, and I think I was talking to you or another person earlier, and Capital Press called just this morning. They're a well-known agricultural magazine, and they wanted to know the ins and outs and what's happening here with the industry. And I brought up the word greed.
Okay.
And you know, like the movie with Michael Douglas, Greed's Good. And I kind of ascribe to that. I think if you're going to grow something, greed's good within wanting a fair return back on your investment and on what you do. And a lot of this business was kind of propagated by people that had made a lot of money the year before. And of course, what happens when that happens? They share it.
Right.
And they kind of brag. They kind of brag a little bit. And when they're bragging, their neighbors hear it, and they get kind of envious. I got a little bit of property. Oh, and it's a weed. I hate that. I mean, I like it when the aspect, it is a durable plant, but it does need to be tendered. It does need to be cared for. You got to have infrastructure for hemp. It's unlike anything else. So anyway, I think people threw it on the ground, and they like build it and they will come, or something like that.
Absolutely.
Plant it and they will come was really just about the extent of many small farmers' attitude. And so the disappointment, you talked, Pete, about the money being lost. They had pride. They were telling their wife, hey, we're going to be able to pay the farm off.
It was like
huge.
In cannabis, people were coming through saying, I'm going to make $1 million on this thing. I'm going to make $1 million growing hemp here. I can make $20,000 an acre. Isn't that true?
They're borrowing money from their in-laws
to
and
do
their
this.
friends.
So that's what happened to many people.
In our valley and throughout Oregon and probably Tennessee, and we do follow other co-ops and what they're doing, the platform, the stage was set for immense disappointment because you know, I was just reading once again in the little online magazine, and a farmer from Tennessee said, I grew tomatoes and I grew corn, and I barely made it. And when I heard I could make $50,000 an acre, he says in the little story, right now I'm still holding on to 5,000 pounds of hemp that I don't know what to do with.
What? 5,000?
That's small. That's just a couple. He was smart. He only grew on a couple acres. It didn't kill him like some people put their. I've had people come to me and say that I've invested my retirement.
Oh, I'm sure. Dear. No, you can't go from just a few, maybe hundreds of acres here to 10,000 acres without people knowledge and who's growing this and what's happening. You can just see it.
That's speculation. That's what that is. That's speculation.
Another question for you, Mark, is what happens now to all the debris that's left over here? We see piles of stems, we see plastics and stuff. What's going to happen with that?
I'm glad you brought that up, and of course you can imagine where I'm getting most of the negative calls from in our valley is from Ashland.
Oh, okay.
And they're very environmentally conscious.
Across the hill, you can see it
across the hill, and there's grows over there. What I really like and love about the hemp industry, for all of its right now challenges that we have, is it's the most coalescing, warmest group of people, and it would be really easy for me not to acknowledge that. But I've been in the construction all my life. It's highly competitive. It's not coalescing. It is, rush to that next job ahead of the other guy to make sure you get it. The hemp industry is just a bunch of fellowship. So to that point, I've been called in the last 2 weeks with 2 or 3. Now, some of them are contractors for pay, but one lady that's a team, 2 women, offered a program, and they want donations. They're asking for donations to go and pick it up, and hoping that the goodwill of the farmer will help them. And I ran a little ad to that point and that idiom, to where they found a recycler. There's very few, and that's why everything goes to China. But they found one. Apparently, I don't know what Brooks, Oregon, but it's a recycler in Brooks, Oregon.
Is this for the plastic?
Yeah, for the plastic.
Cool.
And so she asked if I could run that ad. I about a week ago. I'm behind. I hope I ran it. But
the stems? Are they going to burn them, or going to? I heard they can grind them up and put them back into the soil. Is that true, or what's going to happen with? There's piles and piles of stems. Stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I hope that's not a mix. Some people do it kind of fast and furious, and they end up mixing some of the stems with the plastic, and make it harder to recycle. But
so don't do that.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that, please.
No.
And if you notice, we talked about some of the farms right here around the station.
Yeah.
And now that gentleman is an advanced farmer that I know of, and he plows it right back into the ground. And if you read the United Nations and the USDA report on taking the biomass and just plowing it back
You're
in.
talking the stems now.
Yeah,
so they have to grind them up.
Yeah, they probably rototiller them and disc them back in, but they do go back into the soil. Now we get many, many calls on the fiber, because that's good fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Mm-hmm. It was feed once. It was a feed source for animals.
Didn't they make ropes and strings and stuff?
Yeah, it's one of the most industrial product. The reason, yeah. But anyway, I think that's going to be handled now. Our property, compared to Klamath Falls, which we alluded to a little bit earlier, or we talked about prior to the show, has cheaper property than over here in the Rogue Valley. Mm-hmm. And so I do believe, and I hope we've got some farmers from the Bend area and Klamath Falls area that understand that they have large plots of land that's cheaper, and they want to grow that vertical stock planted close together for the benefit of the fiber industry. And that will be huge, because pretty soon what Hemp University, I believe, and the co-ops are working on is trying to get products. Everybody wants to be a farmer. Like they want to be a cowboy.
Isn't that funny?
Only want to be a farmer.
Isn't that funny? That's come full circle, because it wasn't really that popular not that long ago. Nobody wanted to be a farmer, and now we're all wanting to be farmers again.
Yes,
we got to make some money.
We have to start manufacturing, and we are going to.
Okay, so I take
that
the
would
plant.
be so awesome.
So I got another break. Kind of back. So we take the plant. You take the leaves, correct?
Correct.
Just strip the leaves off of them, right?
That's correct. There's machines that do that.
And they're machines.
But that's for the CBD oil. Is that correct?
Yeah. Anything that you get, you don't want to. The stock has less CBD content in it. We can talk a little bit. Once again, a wide and varied subject, quite vast. But we want to concentrate. The most of the CBD is in the flowers, trichomes, I believe they call them, and that part of the plant. And that's a lot of the money right there that farmers don't realize. It takes time if they don't have that machine to hand strip and do that work. So they don't write a good ROI in the beginning.
Return on investment, ROI.
So some of the people, they were stripping those, I saw them with branches, and they were stripping the flowers mostly off them first, that kind of thing.
That's correct.
And that's the thing. And who buys this stuff? I mean, where do the co-ops sell it? Who buys it?
Oh, no. I have to answer that question. Yeah, I would get a lot more members if I knew every market to where to place the product that people are so desperate to sell, even right now. And that goes back to the business plan again that we've been going on. I get calls on October the 1st, true story, with people asking me, hey, I got a bunch of hemp. Do you know who's buying it? That is not a good marketing plan.
Yeah, you want to know that first.
No, yes, I always like to do. I don't mean to insult them. But I always liken to the guy that has a little fruit or berry stand, and the first thing he thinks about is his little shed that's going to go along the road. Where is he going to put it? Maybe start a web page. Maybe start reaching out to institutional buyers. I mean, that's what I do to try to help the co-op members. Is calling. I've called Levi Strauss. I've called.
Did you? What did they say?
Yeah. I've got nowhere. But so that's not a negative. I didn't really expect so the first couple of times. And there's a long story about opening up Oregon Hemp Co-op. I want to have other liaisons with other good co-op operators so we have more land, more property, and they'll recognize us, because I don't know if you know about the OSU research program. We have the highest. I was going
to bring that up there. Oregon State University has the Hemp Institute. Is it called the Hemp Institute there at OSU?
Largest in the nation.
It's huge. I mean, we're talking really big economic stuff here, and we want to be the leader of it here. And our big complaint is we don't see processing here. We don't see products being made, manufactured here from CBD oils, et cetera, et cetera. It's being shipped somewhere else, and those jobs are going with it. We just don't want to be a grower here. Is that right?
Well, I think I'd like to see a mix because of the jobs and the variety of jobs.
You guys are going to believe this or not, but I get goosebumps when you live in this valley all these years and you read Henry Ford's little idiom on building the car out of hemp. You know, and I hope I have just a little bit of time to talk about young people and an encouraging word for young people to enter this market and to do their own research. It's amazing if you think that Henry Ford built the automobile out of hemp.
I did not know that.
This is upholstery, this is fenders, this is plastics. He added hemp to everything, and it's a very durable product, by the way. We know why the industry was stalled by the cotton industry that looked at it as a threat.
Oh, okay.
And it goes back really interesting. But if young people with Google now, we didn't have Google back when Henry Ford just decided he was a great industrialist, as we all know, and quite a mind. And he goes, hey, this is a good product. Of course, Thomas Jefferson, all of our forefathers knew about the benefits of hemp. And that's why I really get concerned when folks my age that somehow associate hemp with that horrible psychotic drug.
It's cannabis. No, they're totally different. They're
totally different.
They really. So the plant in your eyes is as good as what everyone says it is. It's that kind of a
exponentially more. I think my calling was to speak and hopefully be just as passionate as I am about the hemp industry. Oh, it's going to go even in my mind. I know there's no limits. If it wouldn't be for the psychotic effect of marijuana, can you imagine where we'd be in this nation if there was only hemp? It would have been accepted. It would have been prospered by the people. The cotton industry used it as, oh my gosh, that's why it was on the FBI's list as a drug. It was only because industry didn't want it because it's a superior textile. It's a superior strong. They're even relating it, from what I understand, to Kevlar in strength.
Wow. So we could be decades further along. But with technology now and, the AI and the internet and all these interesting bio things that they're adding to fabrics and plastics to make things that we can't even dream of right now.
Just think of 3D imaging and where that's going. That's the analytical capabilities.
We should get a 3D printer, Mark. We should get a 3D printer and start making hemp products.
That would be more members for the co-op.
Let's do that. And it's more jobs. And it's more jobs. And young people that grew up on the internet and grew up in the digital age, they could be that part of the industry. They don't have to be a farmer.
And we need to get people. We need to keep the jobs here.
We need to keep the jobs
instead of shipping them out. We got a break coming up here. One more segment to go. We're with Mark Taylor today, talking about hemp and the Southern Oregon Hemp Co-op, and what an interesting discussion that we've learned so much today about what's taking place around us and its future. It looks pretty darn bright as well. We got a break coming back after the Real Estate Show continues after this. The Real Estate Show continues here on KCMX News Media 880 and on YouTube at realestateshoworegon.com. Pete and Alice with you here today with Mark Taylor from the Southern Oregon Hemp Co-op. And Alice, you've been really supportive of this.
I'm a big fan.
You're a big investor, and you see lots of openings and opportunities for people, right?
Well, and that's what it's all about. I want Southern Oregon to have some sustainable jobs and sustainable industry that's also works for the people that live here, and to have some variety. And I think hemp offers that because it's not just the farming, it's processing. We were just talking about using it in digital, and during the break, I jokingly asked if you could build a house out of it, and what do you know?
Yes, you can, and it actually has been done. We have a longstanding, actually a recent resident to our valley who is a real procurer of hemp concrete and hemp bricks, and I think he's getting up there in age, but he's slowed a little bit on the building. But he's come to Oregon to do more research, and he's also working with Oregon State University that I'd like to talk about. I believe I know he has a researcher up there, and I believe they're tied in. But
are they growing hemp at the OSU Research Station here in Jackson County? Are they doing any experimenting with anything out there?
That I do not know, and that's a great question. All you do is you see the statement on their webpage is they grew in 3 or 4 5-acre plots for seed genetics and optimizing hemp, and they actually called the co-op and reached out to us, Jay Noller. I'm trying to think of the other gentleman's name, but just very nice to say that they would like to use our co-op as kind of the library to see with a cloud-based system, because that is going to be cloud-based testing is coming into the forefront.
Wow!
As you know, to where farmers can share information and to a research entity like OSU, they would love to know how their seed genetics are prospering or propagating in a field, and the best way to do that is through a cloud-based system, of course.
It's going to be Hempopedia. Instead of Wikipedia, it's going to be Hempopedia.
Yeah, don't get me. I can always trump that and add one more.
Go
like
for it.
Well, it's hemispherical, Hippocratic,
The hemisphere,
yeah.
the Southern Oregon hemisphere.
I have a Hippocratic oath.
There you go.
Yeah.
It sure seems that we're just at the very tip of the iceberg with all of this, and we're I don't even know where it's going to go, but I'm excited about it. I think we got to be careful, though. Again, we got issues with the land.
And what about water?
And water. That's
yeah,
the other thing.
what about water?
Yeah. Well, if we grew mostly hemp, we would actually lower our water usage needs in the agriculture.
Versus what?
Oh, versus corn or any other crop.
Or
it's
hay,
well known.
Hay probably.
Yeah, hay included. I think the United Nations issues reports that I think are accurate. Their agronomists have studied it, and it really does help countries with low yield.
So how were these fields watered this year? Because there were no sprinklers on them, so they have to be coming from underground or along the ground, right?
Yes, drip systems.
The plastic is the drip system itself.
Yes, that's correct.
So water goes into the plastic, and then that will drip into those where they have the plants.
Yep, little emitters come out.
So that's why we didn't see any sprinklers or things like that.
Yeah, because we wondered about
they didn't want to
that.
get it on the plant anyway. So
yeah,
so
and of
that's
course
why
they're trying not to propagate other weeds, so they're trying to condense or concentrate, I should say, the water within the plant arena or area or growth root zone. It's an efficient way. It is an efficient way to plant. It does produce a lot of plastic because some farmers this year grew on 100, 200, 300 acre plots.
Well,
it was.
You start doing the math.
Well, whoever sold all that plastic made a whole lot of money. That's all I can say.
Don't you think, though, that there's going to be a technology opportunity in the plastic development to have something that's maybe a little bit biodegradable, or it'll be stronger? Maybe they'll even make it out of hemp. It'll be strong and sturdy in the beginning, and then it can automatically within what is the growth cycle?
It depends, but at flower, if there's auto flower, that's something really exciting that we can talk about if we had more time.
But if the plastic could self-destruct after the end of
that's a
the
good
growth
point.
cycle.
There is the other plastic that adds to it. I don't know about the drip system, how we'd make that biodegradable because it has to be strong. But the actual mat that's covered that you see out there that we put down for a weed barrier, folks have been making. There's two companies primarily that I know of that actually make biodegradable, at least ground covering. For the plant.
See, that's the direction we need to go.
Does straw work that way? Well, we saw some fields of straw around. Remember this?
Yeah, one or two farmers did it out in. We have a couple farmers out in the Provo-Murphy area, and they tried straw. They still had quite a bit of weed, and that didn't work very good for their field. And if you do that, I think it would work, but you need more laborers to pull more of the weeds. It helps.
And we're almost out of time again here. Where did everybody come to work on these fields?
Yeah.
Was it migrant workers, or where did the workers come from?
Yeah, that's really every subject is large and broad here. I try to condense it.
Yeah.
I had some of the large growers, and I thought it was wrong, to be honest with you, make statements they were going to bring in people from Puerto Rico, they're going to bring in people from Mexico, and it is only my feeling, but being a general contractor for 40 years, one of the big dangers is if you don't pay people per Oregon labor laws and you don't have OSHA involved. In other words, you can do that too fast and
we
furious.
saw that. We saw that.
Not planning again.
And you can have injuries. You can have all kinds of problems. And a matter of fact, some of those farmers, when I talked to them at some of the meetings, I said, "Oh, I have to do it. I have to find labor," and they're really pushed on that. And I just cautioned them on what I just talked about. But they ended up, because they didn't want to deplete their CBD content. There is something to hand. It's an important analysis, hand harvesting, as opposed to doing it with the machine. And eventually, including some of these right around us here, they buckled because the labor never came. Well, for one thing, it's a very short season. What are we going to do? Put them all on our avenues?
Well,
it would have been mean-spirited, as far as I'm concerned. Those people would not have found jobs afterwards.
Well, I was in Klamath Falls at a hotel when we went over there, and they said it was like 2 months. They were full the entire 2 months, and I go, "What's going on?" She says, "They're hemp not growers, but hemp workers."
Yeah, workers.
So they're
they're hiring, and they were staying in hotels because there was no place.
Where are they right now? Where are all those people
right now? See, that's the thing. They're gone.
They're gone.
So they're here and they're
gone, or they don't have the money. If they didn't budget the money, if it wasn't set up in accounts for them, it could be, once I said, a very, I think, cruel thing to do. We have workers here. The co-op is trying to get into training, but a lot of that is endemic that our young people have to enjoy it because the old people are not going to come out and do this rigorous work.
No.
The hand harvesting, yeah.
Yeah,
You'd want to be
long days for only
a
short
sturdy
period of-
body.
short period of
Well,
time.
see, even in hemp, if you're a farmer, you take risk. I don't care. Farmers and ranchers, you take risk all the time, and big risk, big reward. They say, right? Sometimes it works the other way.
That's correct.
The whole hemp
But
industry is so
starting
fascinating.
any business,
Yeah.
it's starting a business. It's creating a business opportunity, and
Yeah.
it's risky.
I've learned from you. You got to have a plan, and
I could go back to
and
that
you
all day
could
long.
See that you can certainly see when the rains come. If you didn't have a plan before the rains came, you're going to lose your crop, and that's exactly what happened. So
Yeah.
that's things like that.
The main part of any plan is, they say in real estate, it's location, location, location. And the hemp business, it is marketing, marketing, marketing. There has to be 101 of your hemp grow operation. And I had folks that were really sophisticated. I knew them. And they would call me at the last moment. And I said, well, what did you plan on when you grew this? And, it's been said, do not plant a plant in the ground unless you have a place to sell it.
Yeah.
That was like foreign to them. Now, I'll go a little bit less than that. I'll say if you just write up a good plan and you kind of know at least what it's going to sell for, maybe ask some people, what do you project? And I had my projections, and they were fairly accurate from what I believe was knowledge and talking to other people. And I got most of all the questions on October the 1st, and that is not a good time to be asking your questions.
Final question for you. What is an acre, or what does it bring it in today, a pound of hemp? Or what is it roughly bringing in?
Well, the yield is approximately, for a good farmer, about 2,000 pounds per acre. And I think I can say this because I know it to be true. It depends on the quality, Pete, but it ranged anywhere from about $12 a pound to up to 25, maybe a little bit more.
By different grades.
Different
last year
percentages
it
of
was?
CBT. Around 30. I got 35.
So you got more last
for
year.
mine.
Just more in
Good
the
for
market.
you.
Yeah,
That was
nice
last,
job.
That was last year.
Yeah,
It was
but
last year.
still.
You didn't come back this year. This year
Thumbs up.
you didn't get it this year.
Quite a bit less this year.
Well, look,
undoubtedly.
how can someone find you if they want to get a hold of you, Mark? I know you've got either the web address is let me get this right.
Please.
SOOR, right?
Right.
SOOR Hemp CO. Oh my God! Here, you give it. You read it. I can't read that one.
That's Southern Oregon Hemp Co-op. So it's S.
You can just Google it and you'll probably find
Yeah,
it.
if you type in Southern Oregon Hemp Co-op, I'll come up, and hopefully I think most of the farming community that knows me knows that I live and breathe this, and I'm here to serve. It's a good business-to-business network that I can answer most questions.
Here. Gosh, I learned a lot as usual.
Yeah, it's so
appreciate your
exciting.
efforts, and good luck to you, and good luck to all that, and we'll see what happens. You come back again next, in a while, and we'll update us and see what's going on again, because it's not going away.
Yeah, we're
Hemp
at
is
that.
here to stay, folks, and how we deal with it, as you say, how we do it, makes a huge difference, whether you're successful or not, in jobs and all the things that go with it. Hey, we're out of time today, so thank you for joining us here on the Real Estate Show. Big thanks to Brett Nance, who does our video camera here for our show. We appreciate his work as well. You got, I guess you're out here for another week. We'll talk to you next week. We got Arvar coming in next week. We're going to talk about what happened in the world of real estate this last year in their eyes. So the Zupans will be with us. So
kind of a year in review, because this is the end of the decade.
The end of the
folks.
decade. Even
It's
the end of the year. It's the end of the
decade.
decade. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show. Have a great week, everybody, and God bless you all.